Congressman Michael Bennet, thank you for coming in. Welcome back to Next.
Thanks. It's great to be here, Kyle.
Talk about the situation in Iran. So President Trump is warning Iran that a whole civilization will be wiped out if they don't surrender by tonight. Is this just Trump being Trump, exaggerated language, or do you think it's something different?
I think that, I think it's Trump being Trump because he knows no boundaries and he doesn't understand what the effect on the entire world is of hearing the United States, hearing the President of the United States say that an entire civilization will die tonight. That is not language that any president has ever used or should ever use.
You think he's serious?
I have no idea whether he's serious or not, but it is an appalling message to send to the entire world. Look, I am somebody who believes very, very strongly that the mullahs in Iran should not have a nuclear weapon. I believe that they will be as dangerous as North Korea has been with a nuclear weapon. But Donald Trump had no idea why he was getting into this war. He didn't plan effectively for this war. He did not rally the Congress or rally our allies or the American people for this war. And now he's saying the war will end when the Strait of Hormuz is not blockaded by the Iranians. That was not the state of affairs when he started dropping bombs in Iran. So this is crazy, Kyle.
Is it possible that this is just Trump embracing the madman theory, right? Convince your opponent that you're crazy, and that's how you get them to give up. And if so, how do you think that approach would work against folks who themselves are willing to be martyred for their cause?
I actually think that is possible in Trump's mind. I don't think that excuses it, but I think that, you know, the commercial real estate baron in him comes out at moments like this when he thinks that if he threatens to walk away or he threatens to bomb your building, that somehow you're going to respond to that. These guys are, you know, they have been running this revolution for the last 50 years in Iran. They are not intimidated by Donald Trump. And when Donald Trump starts something like this, the Iranians are going to have as much to say about finishing it as the American people are. And that's why these stakes are so high. And this is not a real estate transaction in New York. It really is not. He's brought the entire world into this.
How do you assess the performance of the U.S. military in this? I mean, certainly what the U.S. military has done has been pretty catastrophic to the regime.
I think the performance of the U.S. military has been incredible in this moment, as it was in Venezuela. And I oppose the president doing what he did in Venezuela. The fact that our military is extraordinary is a great testament to the military. It's a great testament to the American people who have funded our military year in and year out, administration after administration. And their capabilities should never be doubted. I'm on the Intelligence Committee. I can tell you, we have the greatest capabilities in the world. That does not mean we should always use them. And I think that's we find ourselves in a situation where Donald Trump has used them without any sense of what the end game is going to be in this war, and frankly, no sense of what the original purpose was of this war.
But he's offered some rationales, right? The idea of regime change, the idea of ending their nuclear and ballistic missile program. Those seem like goals that you would agree with, but you differ with how he's prosecuting.
Yeah, and I would say multiple rationales is not the same as having a rationale. Changing your rationale on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday is not the same thing as having a disciplined rationale that you are rallying the rest of the world behind. And by the way, and so he hasn't done that, and he has shifted it to deal with the inconvenience of a political moment that changes and where he's trying to either satisfy his base or try to satisfy the rest of the world that somehow this is all going to end properly. And so I think this is a good reminder that it's nice to have a president who actually is disciplined, who actually is strategic, who doesn't shoot off our most powerful weapons just because he feels like doing it. That's a bad standard, I think, for a president of the United States, and President Trump has shown why that's dangerous. You are right. Their ballistic missiles are a threat to not just Israel and the Middle East, but ultimately could be the United States. I've said over and over and over again, they should never have a nuclear weapon. But there was no evidence before Donald Trump began this latest campaign that they were any closer to breaking out to a nuclear weapon than they were 6 months ago, or frankly, 6 years ago.
Some of the president's critics think that he's being led around by the nose by Israel. and you certainly have been a staunch ally of Israel as an American ally. Do you think that there is merit to that criticism?
I think that only the President of the United States should decide when our troops are committed. Only the President of the United States, acting with Congress, should decide when a war is actually commencing. And our timetable should never be set by any ally of ours. And I think that's true of Israel as well. My old colleague, Marco Rubio, on the Intelligence Committee, made it crystal clear that, in his opinion, Israel had set the timetable for the U.S. attack on Iran. And if that's true, that's a terrible failure on the part of Donald Trump.
What is your assessment, to the extent that you can share it with us? Do you think that Trump was goaded or pushed into war by Israel?
No, my assessment is that Donald Trump fell in love with the result of our military capabilities in the Venezuela episode and applied that to a completely different set of circumstances in a completely in a way that is so profoundly ignorant it's hard to understand. But that's what I think that he did. He just said this worked in Venezuela and it's going to work in Iran. That is an ignorant statement and a dangerous statement. And frankly, Kyle, this is why we need some Republicans to join us on the War Powers Act resolutions. We need some Republicans to join us to say we are not going to approve the funding of this war by Trump or the ridiculous DOD budget that he's now put in the Senate that would increase the cost of our military by 50%. This is a guy who said we were going to stop the endless wars in the Middle East and that the American people were tired of it. This was a guy who said that America shouldn't be the world's policeman, and he has now taken on the role of the world's policeman, the world's judge, jury, and executioner, and it is dangerous for the United States and dangerous for the world.
So what's an off-ramp here that you'd support?
I think an off-ramp here would be very helpful if we got back to Washington and it were clear that there were growing bipartisan support that was not available on war powers and not available on funding. I think that it would be helpful if the president could get himself into a position where he understood that we could hopefully negotiate a way out of the situation that we're in. It's going to be, it's going to be a challenging thing because the Iranians are not, they're not going to give up. They're not going to capitulate to Donald Trump. They see the advantage of actually there being a longer war, not a shorter war. So none of that is going to be easy. But I think the greatest off-ramp for the world would be for the president to stop shooting his mouth off and to allow, if there is going to be a negotiation, for that to actually happen.
One last question. Do you believe there's evidence that President Trump is a war criminal?
I believe that if he pursues what he said he was going to do, that those would be the acts of a war criminal.
Destroying civil infrastructure.
Destroying a civilization.
Senator Bennet, thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me.